Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Tuesday, the 18th of July. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning for the first time since we met, I think, when I was on the tallest building in Thailand, Jonny, and we all know what happened then. But Jonny McFarlane joins me for the first time this week. How are we doing?
Yeah, let's hope it's not quite as eventful as that one, Derek, in terms of my stress levels and my steamed up glasses. But certainly people really did enjoy that, and no wonder, because it was a crazy moment, and certainly one of my favourite looking back on my time with the Rangers Review. So if it can be as eventful as that, maybe we should just welcome it. But listen, Derek, before we get started, I want to have a wee bit of a pop at some of these people in the comments saying Johnny's on, so we're going to be late. What's that all about? I'm always on time, folks. Always.
Yeah, well done to everyone who's got it bang on 9:30 once again. I think this is the longest streak ever we've been on time. So Cyberpint to the following. I'll flash up the names at Simpson style to everyone who has got it right today. So well done to each and every one of you. Huge thanks as well to Scotty from the Bangkok Bears, who was very kind enough to send me this lovely jersey here, the Bangkok Bears Rangers jersey. A lot of them were wearing it in the Orsa convention last week, and he was kind enough to send me one in the post. It came yesterday, so thank you very much. I'm told there are still some available, folks. Just check them out on their Facebook and Twitter pages, and you can get a few left. There's blue ones and white ones also available, so do go and check them out. Lots to talk about when it comes to Rangers, Jonny. Let's talk transfers first of all, because it looks like we know that Antonio Cholak departed at the tail end of last week to join Parma. Now reports suggesting that Scott Wright heading over to Turkey to sign for a team that I never heard of before yesterday, I've got to admit. Pendikspor, a bid has been accepted from Rangers, £500,000 for the 25-year-old. He'll leave the club after 2.5 years spent in Glasgow, so he looks set to depart. Glenn Kamara also linked with a move away. Jonny, can you update us on the latest?
Yes, Scott Wright is in talks with this Turkish club, who I'm not going to try and copy by trying to enunciate that. No chance. But he's not there at the moment, but certainly that's going to be in the post that he would go over there and speak to them. I understand they are a smaller Turkish club, but with major financial backing. I think their stadium only holds something just under 3,000 people, 2,500, 3,000. So they are a kind of like a St Johnstone or a team like that in terms of Turkish football. And we know there's some absolute behemoths in there, like Fenerbahce and Galatasaray. And
he'll come up against Ryan Kent, won't you, next this season?
Well, that's it. If he goes, he will come up against Ryan Kent. And I think I used to describe Scott Wright as a baby Kent in terms of what he gave you. He was like Ryan Kent maybe 3 or 4 years before. Unfortunately for Scott, who's a player I admire and I think has a lot of talent, he just hasn't really quite been able to put it all together at Rangers. There's been flashes and moments of high quality. You think of the layoff for Glenn Kamara's goal against Leipzig, and people forget he played in that game, probably the most memorable game of the last 25 years. If you're a Rangers fan, people will argue about that, but certainly one of them. And of course, scored a decisive goal in a Scottish Cup final. Rangers were 1-0 up, but obviously anything can happen at that point. And that second goal from Scott Wright just sealed the deal and put the cap on the season. So I think he was a good signing for £250,000, and it was worth doing. But I think also it's the right time for him to go. I would not be surprised if he went there, did well, and then ended up getting a bigger move, because I think we all know Scott Wright has talent. I don't think there'll be many people in the comments saying, no, he's useless, he's no good. He has got talent, but it's putting it all together and finishing off those moves. There was a brilliant run that he made in the pre-season game there that Rangers clipped up, and you saw him doing this sort of crazy Messi-like dribble, and then he gets through on goal and hits a team shot low at the keeper, and that kind of sums up Scott Wright. He's capable of so much, and if he can find a way to put it all together, I'm sure that the next club that he goes to will have one to watch. But I think 500 grand, that's where he is in this market. People look at that and say, well, he played in a European final, but you can only get in what people are willing to pay, and unfortunately that's around about the price that Scott Wright is going to go for in this market. And Rangers have got to move on players that won't play, and Scott, I don't think is going to play a lot of minutes. So to me, it's the right move. Regarding Glenn Kamara, Derek, I'll just touch on that briefly. There's been a lot of talk about moves for Glenn Kamara. My understanding, and everyone in journalism will have a different understanding of different things, but my understanding is that there is no concrete interest from Leeds at the moment. That's not to say that they've not looked at the player or that they don't have any sights on the player at all. It's just that there's nothing imminent on that front, and nothing's been agreed between the two clubs. So I think that one's a wee bit further down the line than some rumours have been suggesting. Obviously, Rangers are open to selling Glenn Kamara. I think the player and the club have come to an agreement on that, similar to Antonio Cholak that Michael Beale talked about. Kamara, I think, sees his future elsewhere. His two big pals, Calvin Bassey and Joe Aribo, have already got their moves. I don't think he's been the same since they left. So it's time for him to go, and I'm sure when he does go, Rangers will recoup a decent amount of money, especially when they brought him in for 50,000. But I don't think that's quite where people are saying it is at the moment. That's my understanding as it stands.
Yeah, I know they're interested in the Chelsea midfielder Ethan Ampadu, Leeds United at the moment. Of course, we've got a new manager in there, Daniel Farke. And has been reported by the Yorkshire Post. He's one of a number of players, though, they're looking at, Jonny. So I think that ties in with what you're saying.
I'm not saying there's no interest there. I'm not saying
he'll be one of a number of players, though, that
it won't happen. Yeah, it's just not far. It's nowhere near far down the line.
Yeah,
that's my understanding. So that's what my sources are telling me.
Yeah. Just on the Wright transfer fee, Aldo reckons we should have got a bit more. He says, I think Wright is worth more than the reported 500k. I've seen a lot of this on social media last night, Jonny, where people, like you say, he has played in that European final. He scored important goals for Rangers, and they feel that the club are perhaps selling their players short. I tend to agree. I think £500,000 is probably decent money for someone who's a squad player at best. He's had enough opportunities now to establish himself as a first-team pick, and he's not quite taken them. I think 500k is decent money for him, and I wish him all the best in his move over in Turkey, which a number of Rangers players have went over there and found it difficult. I'm thinking back to Chris Boyd, Kenny Miller went over there, and of course Alan McGregor, who will be celebrating this evening, went over there as well for a period of time. But it's not the easiest of leagues to play in, but hopefully he does well. And like you said, Jonny, I think if he does well over there in Turkey, then that might spark a bit of interest, maybe down south or a team elsewhere.
I'll need to check, but I'd be amazed if there wasn't a sell-on in that 500,000. I'd be amazed if there wasn't a 10% or 15% or more sell-on for Scott Wright. Because as I said before, to reiterate, he is a player that everyone understands has talent. And, if he goes to Turkey, he's playing in a team that really, really suits it. I think Scott Wright has got that ability to play in a counter-attacking team, by the way. He's got pace. He's got the ability to carry the ball. He's a hard worker, and he does what he's told tactically. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, by the way, loved Scott Wright. Yeah. Because he would give Scott Wright instructions and he would follow them to the letter. So you've got all that in the package, but, the Rangers are looking to sell the player on. It's an open market. The bids come in and you pick the biggest bid. And if the bid's 500k, then that's what he's worth.
Yeah, let's get to a few comments that are coming in. Ian Thompson says 500k seems light when Matondo went for 11 million.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Yeah, absolutely. Matondo's another one. I'm sure that no one's really been speaking about recently, but someone I don't think. Well, Rangers paid £2 million, just over £2 million for him at the time. So whatever. Remains to be seen if he'll feature this evening and where his future lies, I guess. Had a difficult first season at Rangers. Francis says, a bit disappointed about Wrighty going. I don't think he was given a good shot, but the time is best for all and wish him good luck. And Dean Milne says, good to see the clear out making baby steps, more to exit, I'd imagine. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about potential incomings then, Jonny, because of course Danilo is a player Rangers have been linked with for some time now. There was murmurings that it's perhaps stalled a little bit, and we've also seen Cifuentes. I seen him posting a photo on an aeroplane last night, which sparked a bit of rumour about whether he's heading to Glasgow. But can you update us on the latest with those two?
I think Cifuentes is still where it's been, and that's a complex transfer, and I don't think it's liable to happen immediately in the coming days. Obviously, a player Rangers really want. Obviously, a player that I think Michael Beale sees as someone that can add something significant to the squad. But as to whether or not it's edging closer, to use the tabloid parlance, we're all edging closer to death. Everything is, you're edging closer to that coffee being drunk.
Johnny.
I'm not sure. I think that one is like all the transfers incoming now at Rangers. They're kind of in a situation where I think it's safe to say that the club would like to recoup some of the money that has been splashed out. 7 players have come in, Derek. Every single one of them will be on good wages. And I think now is the time for the players to that are looking to be moved on to get some of those out. They've got Cholak out. That's brought in 2.5 million and cleared up some wages. Scott Wright looks to be on his way. If that's finalised, I think if you can get Glenn Kamara out, that will trigger more coming in.
Yeah. Lots of comments coming in. I like this one from Kev Armstrong. He says, Jonny, the modern day Jerry McNee for
Kev, settle down. Come on now. I'm going to start calling you number 8, Kev.
And just on Cifuentes, his social media post, Dean Milne says that he was going to Hawaii. Poor guy, probably get loads of Scottish boys messaging his inbox like mad. Listen, that is one to keep an eye on. But that's as updated with regards to...
One last thing, Derek, is on Danilo.
Yes.
Which again, similar to Cifuentes, I don't think there's been much movement forwards since the initial bids and the initial discussions between the club. I think Rangers have gone in with what they want to offer. The club have said what they want, and there's a little bit of toing and froing going on there, and everyone knows where they stand. But as I say, if you look at it contextually, I think Rangers are just being a little bit tentative until some players now are moved out. So I think there's no doubt Cifuentes and Danilo, they are the two that I would say, are most likely to happen. I think Jonathan Panzo is obviously another one the club are interested in. I think these moves are slightly on hold until some money is brought back in. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I like this comment. It says, thanks, Jonny, for bringing the mood down with our impending death.
I just mean this phrase, edging closer. It's a curious one. Something is edging closer.
Yeah, it seems to be
everything is edging closer.
It's a football term. I think it's a football term. I expect it. I don't know what account it is on Twitter that always. There was one this morning actually. It says they get minutes in the legs. I think
yes.
They'll make a montage of it's edging closer soon as well, I'd imagine. At some point. Let's get to a few of the comments that are coming in. Just, of course, we've got the big game tonight. Rangers taking on Newcastle back at Ibrox for Alan McGregor's testimonial. Supporters have been urged to arrive at Ibrox early as well, just to make sure QR codes work and what have you, so you can get in as early as possible to avoid any hassles. Hopefully there's not too much in the way of disruption with folk getting in. We're expecting around 8,000 Newcastle fans heading up for the game as well, so it should be a right cracking atmosphere. Good to see that the Rangers TV posting the little video yesterday of Alan McGregor turning back up for work for training ahead of the game tomorrow. As Dave Wilcox says, hope we put on a great game tonight for Alan's testimony. One thing for sure, it'll be a great atmosphere. Yes, absolutely. What are we expecting tonight, Jonny, in terms of the game? Do you think McGregor starts?
Well, it'll be interesting. I think Ewan Murray, who's quite close to Alan McGregor on Twitter, said that he came back to training and he felt like he might as well have been a postman for the last 25 years. Such was the the difficulties in it. So, you know, I don't know if Alan will maybe fancy coming on for the last 10 minutes or if he'll want to start. Either way, listen, he's not been out of the game that long. He'll be fine. He's still in good nick. You know, he's not been out long enough to have done enough damage to himself that he'll be unable to perform in a friendly. But, you know, Newcastle are a good side, Derek. And you don't want to be in a situation where you're losing 3 or 4-0 at Ibrox in the first game of the season. That would be, especially if Alan McGregor was to let in a few howlers because he's had a boozy summer. So I don't know if the plan would be to start Jack Butland and then bring on McGregor for the last 10 minutes. That would, to me, make most sense. You know, at that point in the game, I'm sure there'll have been a lot of changes and subs will have come on in large numbers, and it'll be a bit more approachable in terms of the game state for Alan McGregor to come on. And of course, you'll get that moment, that viral moment where the number one number goes up and Butland, who I'm presuming will be wearing 13 or whatever for the game, will get called, and you'll have all Ibrox standing to salute one of the greatest keepers in the history of the club. So, you know, it's edging closer to that anyway, let's say that.
Yeah. Me and Joshua did a predicted lineups yesterday. You can find those on the website, folks. We've both got McGregor to start the game. Dave Fulton agrees. He goes, Griggsy will play the first 15, 20 minutes, and then the last 15, 20 minutes, he reckons. Listen, tonight is about Alan McGregor, but it's also striking that balance, Jonny, isn't it, of fielding these new signings and sort of getting players minutes ahead of the season kicking off. We've got 4 big pre-season friendlies now taking place, the first of which is tonight. We've got Hamburg at the weekend before Olympiacos next Wednesday, I believe, and then a trip to Hoffenheim to take on the Bundesliga side before the season begins. Stuart says that tonight's game will be a good clue to who Peel wants to keep and let go if they're in the team or not. So it will be an interesting one, won't it? I'd imagine those that will be pitching up at Ibrox tonight, Jonny, will get the opportunity to see possibly all of the summer signings so far, you'd imagine.
Yeah, you would. I'm not sure about Cyril Dessers in terms of...
he didn't play at the weekend, didn't he?
Sorry?
He didn't play at the weekend.
No, I'm not sure if he's quite ready yet, but we may see him. Derek, just to reiterate what you said regarding fans arriving early, I've been speaking to people at the club, and again, that's something that they've been talking about. Anyone who's planning to go to the game, and I know many people listening to this will be, they're urging folk to get there earlier than normal, because there's always a situation where first game back, there's new QR codes and new systems in place, etc., etc. And if you're trying to rock up, 3 minutes before the game starts, there are going to be queues. And if you then have a problem, you could miss a portion of the game. So it's really important, I think, to get there sharp to ensure that you get the maximum from what's on offer tonight. And I'm expecting it to be a really, really good game. So definitely get there as early as you can. Derek, there's another thing. I've got a load of this written down because I was speaking to somebody and there was just so much in what they were telling me that I thought might be good for the morning briefing today. Just in terms of what's coming at Ibrox and what fans can expect to see tonight, because there's been a lot of work done actually over the course of the close season that people might not be aware of. Some people might be aware of it, but I just thought I'd kind of note down and kind of talk through what you've got ahead of you tonight. There's a new PA system, so it should sound a lot crisper and cleaner in terms of announcements that are being made. There's a touchscreen order trial in the Copeland rear, which means that you can order your food for half-time, etc., etc. Upgraded facilities for the media, which we're looking forward to. We can't wait. So the media room has been changed completely, and there's now a new room where Michael Beale will take press conferences. So you expect that to look a little bit different in the Rangers Review videos. However, that's not quite ready yet, so it'll be different tomorrow. I think we're going to do the post-match interviews on the touchline. So, but I understand that shouldn't be long in being fixed, and certainly will be there for the new season. There's the updates to the members' lounge, improvement to other lounges if you're in hospitality, Toilet upgrades in the Copeland Road stand will be completed by the end of November, so you're going to start to see big improvements in there. That's something the club have been aware that needs to be dealt with for quite a long time. This is an interesting one. And this is something that, especially if you're watching on TV, you'll notice, but probably in the stands as well. Rangers are going to become the first club in Scotland to double bank their LEDs going round the ground. So it means that you see these sort of huge advertising displays around the side of the pitch, which is obviously very, very good for advertisers and allows the club to really maximise their potential on that front. Manchester City have it, Inter Milan have it, no one else in Scotland's got it, but it's basically what you would normally have and then another one on top. So you've got this really, really big display for advertising. So that should stand out when you're watching the game, specifically, I think, on telly, but probably also on the match day as well. And that's ongoing. So I don't know if that'll be quite ready for tonight, but certainly it's something that they're working towards. Gordon Ramsay obviously is up and
playing tonight, is he?
In terms of getting that ready.
Yep.
So I think it's called Menu by Gordon Ramsay. So that'll be ready for the start of this new season, I think, in August, or certainly in August. And it's another great addition to the club. Emerson House giant media wall being installed in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that's something that again will be very, very prominent as you're driving past the stadium, and another great opportunity for the club. And of course, this can be kind of been highly discussed already, that the sports bar, that's the work has started on what was the old mega store to turn that into a sports bar, and that should be up and running at the turn of the year for 2024, and that will give the club another space for fans to go before the game and after the game to enjoy a pint, a cup of coffee, in an area that's covered up. And I think adding to this quality of experience, really, going to the football, I think is a really, really good thing going forward, and it shows once again the club are really getting with the programme as terms of being a modern, forward-thinking club who wants to create an atmosphere for the supporters when they come to really, really enjoy themselves. And I know a lot of people love going to the Loudon Tavern or bars around, whatever they may be. Other bars are available, and these places do a great job. But I think they're always packed. They're always packed. There is room for more, and especially when you know that the money is going directly to the club as well. So I don't think there'll be any shortage of takers on that front. And I think what I would want to see next would be some move in Scottish football to allow alcohol back at games. Allow club to sell pints. At games, and it might be that they decide, certain high-profile fixtures, the likes of Aberdeen Rangers, the likes of Hearts Celtic, the likes of Rangers Celtic, might not be allowed to drink during those games. Why can't you have a drink at Rangers Motherwell? I mean, to me, a pint in those games is absolutely fine, and that would be a huge opportunity for the club to build revenue from. And I think I read somewhere that Borussia Dortmund make £2 million a year from their branded beer. £2 million a year. It's not bad going, and I don't think Rangers would have any problem getting to that level either. So and listen, you can have non-alcoholic beer now is fantastic as well. It doesn't have to be alcoholic. I just think generally creating the atmosphere where you go to the stadium before the game and spend time with your pals, chatting or whatnot, and it's at the game, ahead of the game, it works for everyone, and it's something that we need to get on board with as a nation. Rangers, I know for a fact, are right behind the idea of the reintroduction. So it's something that you would love to see in the months and years ahead, mate.
Yeah, it frustrates me nothing else because I visit, of course, down south at a number of English grounds, and you can have a drink in the concourse everywhere, but you're not allowed in Scotland, as Glasgow Rangers Nation says, as well. All English grounds serve beer. They absolutely do, and it's
how does it affect it, Derek? How does the folk get to the ground earlier? Because this is the thing. I mean, we're saying to people tonight, get to the ground earlier, and I suppose the biggest problem for that is folks say, "Well, I want to enjoy I want to have a couple of pints. I finish work. I want to relax and then go to the football." But does it affect that?
No, not necessarily. I mean, when you go into the concourse of these places, you see just guys just mulling over a pint, having a chat, and I don't understand the reasoning why we don't allow it in Scotland. I've never seen any inch of trouble. I don't understand that as a reason why. I think it was 1980, was it, when the alcohol ban came in? I mean, and you're banning guys from drinking on supporters' buses going to grounds. So I don't know how close we are about getting drink in actual stadiums once again. But the fan experience in general down south at various grounds just far exceeds what we're served up in Scotland. And I know Ibrox is different with regards to that now. I think they've invested a lot of money in making the area around Ibrox better for supporters to turn up to the ground. We know that New Edmonton House has been regularly visited, and that leads me nicely on because, of course, we will be having a Rangers review live there at the end of the month on the 28th of July. We hope you can join us for that, folks. Tickets are still available. The website link is in the description box. Do go click that and buy some tickets if you're thinking about joining me, Jonny, Joshua, Stevie, and Barry Ferguson for that night. But it's all about the fan experience, and it's certainly something that the English put the Scottish grounds to shame, really. But I think part of that is the legislation, of course, that you cannot sell alcohol within the stadium here in Scotland.
Listen, it's one of these ones, Derek, that causes controversy because there's some people who, for good reasons, genuinely don't like the idea of alcohol at football matches, and they say that it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But my problem with Scotland in general as a society is that we tend to have this kind of thrown nature of, oh, no, that'll never work. That'll never work. Yeah. Just don't do it. Do you know
exactly.
what? Why not try it, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to stick with it. Why not just say, okay, we're going to set up 20 games that we think have the potential to cause problems, whatever they are. But games that we know there is no animosity between the clubs, there is no sense of any issues. Let's just introduce drink for those games and let's just see. And run it over 2 years, have a look at it, and let's bring it in line with rugby and the theatre and the cinema, and we'll see how it goes. And if it doesn't go well, and if there's incidents and bad behaviour, then absolutely you have to look at it again. I get that. Yeah. But this sort of prohibition, it's really unfair, and it stigmatises fans of Scottish football in a way that I think is really quite draconian. As I say, you go to the cinema, and it's not just kind of expensive cinemas like Everyman and places like that. It's your Cineworld. Any of these cinemas now, you can get a beer or a glass of wine to go in, and we know what theatres are like. You've always been able to get a glass of wine in a theatre. Rugby, there's lots of booze. But football, nah. And it's not right. It's absolutely not right.
Agree. Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Couldn't agree more. Right, let's move on. Well, a few comments, and then we'll wrap up. I wanted to talk about James Bisgrove, of course, joining the SPFL board for the coming season. We'll just get to a few comments that were coming in. Just on McGregor's testimonial, this comment here, he says, hope McGregor gets the reception he deserves. Absolute legend. Yeah, absolutely. Broxy loves the Rangers review, says, can't wait to go to the game tonight. Been to many of the pre-season games, but due to the fact it's Alan's testimonial, it should be a much better atmosphere. And Dean Milne says, of course, Jason Tyndall at Newcastle. I wonder if Jason Tyndall will make the McGregor testimonial all about him. Yeah, he caused a bit of a stushy last season, if you remember, on the touchline for what was a historic season for Newcastle United. I cannot wait for that next season. See how they get on, of course, under Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall as well. But they'll be in the dugout, the away dugout this evening when Newcastle come to town. Right, let's talk James Bisgrove, Jonny, because this was other news that broke yesterday. He's been elected to serve as part of the new SPFL board for the forthcoming season. He'll join 6 other club chiefs on said board, which will operate alongside Neil Doncaster, Murdoch McLennan, and Karen McCluskey. Comes just days, of course, after the SPFL issued an apology to Rangers over the cinch dispute and committed to paying compensation to the Ibrox side. I think this has to be a good sign that Rangers have a representative on the board, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, it is, Derek, and there'd been some sort of scuttlebutt and rumours about whether or not that the clubs might have been sort of encouraged to not have the Rangers representative take their place. What happens is every season, Celtic do it one season, Rangers do it the next. It's been kind of long established that that's the process. But I think there was a newspaper story suggesting that might be in danger because of the ongoing dispute with Cinch. But we know that it's now been and the relation, fundamentally the relationship between the club and senior figures at the SPFL. That's now been tied up to some extent with the apology that's been made by the SPFL and the fact they paid their legal costs. So it's going to be interesting. Let's put it that way. James Bisgrove is fresh eyes on the scene, fresh eyes on what's happening, but he's very aware of what's going on in the past. He's very aware of how it's been managed. And I think the crucial thing about what came out of the apology was actually not really the apology or the payment of costs, but the fact that they've agreed to quite a rigidly structured review of governance at the SPFL. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out, because I'm not sure how you can suggest that it's been well managed or properly managed, given that they've just had to issue an apology and an acceptance of Rangers' position and pay costs. So that making sure that is the appointment of whoever's going to independently investigate will be one of the things I'm sure that's on James Bisgrove's agenda. But let's not beat around the bush. James is coming from a background of really high performance when you look at his CV around some of the major institutions in European football, UEFA. He's obviously been working with teams, etc., etc. So he knows the top line when it comes to a lot of these issues that the SPFL face. You know, he's been a commercial director, and commercial is arguably one of the weakest areas of the SPFL, which is why you've had, the clubs institute an investigation by Deloitte to look at how they can further boost the money that's coming to the SPFL. I think Bisgrove will be a great addition to that board to help them do that, as well as obviously championing what Rangers want to do. And Rangers' place, he will be a good addition to Scottish football in general. I'm quite sure he's got the experience and the know-how to add a lot to that. But I would also say, Derek, it's impossible to escape the fact that the SPFL has had moribund leadership for over a decade. You look at what Neil Doncaster has achieved in his time, and his greatest achievements are that Scottish football didn't implode. That he led them through difficult times, but did he lead them with ingenuity? Did he lead them with imagination, with spark, with charisma, with a sense of purpose? I don't think so. I really don't, and I don't think there'd be many people who would think that he has. What he has been spectacular at is lining his own pockets in terms of his gargantuan salary, just under £400,000 a year in the last accounts, and in negotiating a situation whereby he's almost unsackable, given he's got a 2-year notice period. So in terms of Neil Doncaster, I think a deeply uninspiring CEO of the SPFL, and someone that I think has definitely had his time and needs to move on. But Scottish football seems to be in a position whereby the politics of that is very difficult. I don't understand it, because I just think from a balance point of view, looking at it from the outside looking in, the achievements that Doncaster has made are primarily in securing himself fantastic contracts. I look at every other aspect of Scottish football and think I don't see what he's added. I don't see what he's achieved.
Jonny's just froze on us there. Hopefully we can get him back. I'll just take it from here until we get it back. Ian Thompson just with a point. James has installed a freshness of Scottish football as he is the way forward for most forward-looking clubs. But the fear is that old-style mentality comes back into the SPFL. Hard to disagree with that, Ian. Right, just before we wrap up, there's a couple of comments I just wanted to get to. First of all, Stephen Smith says, let's not forget the charities that will benefit from tonight's match. Yes, absolutely. The Rangers Charity Foundation, the Emmy Smiley Foundation, and the Prince's Trust will be supported through a charitable donation from the game tonight as well. So a lot of good causes benefiting from tonight's game. And Uncle Dave says, Derek, going along with my mate Brian Alvarez to our local bar this afternoon to watch the game. It'll be Brian's first time watching the number one in the world. Can you say a big hello? Absolutely. Hopefully you enjoy watching the famous Brian and enjoy the game, lads. I'm sure it'll be a cracking atmosphere this evening and a right good send-off to someone who has served the club with distinction over so many years, a bona fide club legend in Alan McGregor. Okay, folks, that'll do us here. Thanks to everyone for joining us on the show this morning. Joshua will be at the game for us this evening, so we'll have all the usual pre-match and post-match reaction. So keep your eyes peeled to our social media accounts for all that, and then we'll be back tomorrow, myself and Joshua, to look back on last night's game, but tonight's game tomorrow morning. Okay, we'll be back again later on, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Bye for now.